All right, we're here with our revision. We're doing Macbeth, questions 2, 3, and 4 from language and Jekyll all together. We're going to parallel them. And here is why. If I go like so. So, the first thing to know is question 1 and question 2 are just about finding facts, yeah? So, 4 facts. How many marks do we get out of 4 for this normally?
4 or 3.
Yeah. Our average is 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4. Pretty good. Really safe. Question 5s, we know. This one is write a creative piece. And this one is write question 5, a persuade. All the same length, the same skills, except you persuade on the one and you describe more on the other one. And so this one is fine. I'm just going to tick them off in a different color. I wonder if we have a green. Actually, there you go. There's a green. We are absolutely safe in this one. We're safe in this one, safe in this one, and safe in that one. All done. And these two are 50% of the paper. So completely safe. 50%. Then you've got question 2, 3, and 4. Now, these are the analytical questions. Now, we'll revise paper 2 as we get closer. We've currently revised these two, and then all of these, we'll do these a bit later as we get closer to the thing. This one asks you about language, so they will give you a tiny extract, a tiny piece of the extract, and ask you about language. This one asks you about structure, and then this one asks you if you would agree with an opinion. So, to what extent do you agree? And we're pretty good on all of those. Now here, this one is super similar. This one says summarize, so you ping pong it with, in your 2 extracts, this surfboard is tall versus this surfboard is short, skip a line. This surfboard is rough versus this surfboard is smooth, skip a line. It's very much like a seesaw. Then they ask you about language. So here you've got a complete overlap. And then they ask you to compare the 2 extracts, and you can compare language or structure. So you can see there's a massive overlap with, where's the new color? With language structure, language compare, like super overlappy. Then you get to the literature papers. And again, whether it's Jekyll and Hyde, so you've got Jekyll and Hyde, you've got Macbeth, you've got AIC, Inspector Calls, and you've got the soldiers in the conflict poetry, or the parents who are left behind. There are 15 tiny snippets of people suffering. And whichever one you get, they're going to ask you language, and they're going to ask you structure, and they're going to ask you to compare. So here, the compare question is the poetry. They will say, they'll give you one poem and say, compare how people feel weak using this poem, but any other poem of your choice. And you don't have to learn them off by heart. You just have to understand the pain. That is it. You remember about 3 quotes per poem, and that includes the title. And it includes whether there's lots of stanzas or just no stanzas, because if there are no stanzas, it means there's no break in the suffering. We're going to do those a bit. We're not worried about those because we're used to looking at suffering, because all of the male characters here, they're suffering. So whether they ask you about, they'll either ask you about a character or a central theme. But regardless of which one they ask you, you're going to use the language of like how he's described and the structure of the actual play. You can even compare your character to different ones if you like. So if they talk about how is power presented in Macbeth, you can talk about how Macbeth should be powerful, but he's weak. And then you can talk about a Lady Macbeth who tries to be powerful and dies. You could talk about the king who's supposed to be almighty, but his own naivety kills him and makes him quite exposed. So you can literally compare whoever you want. So you can see here, language, structure, or comparing is all in lit. So if you can do that skill here, you can do them in here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It massively overlaps. All right, so today we're going to look at common questions. And we're going to look at common questions based on all of these male protagonists. Do you notice that most of these are male, yeah? Why is that? You've got a male protagonist.
Because better.
That's not better.
If the guy who's writing it's male, it's probably easier to talk about men than it is women.
It is actually easier to talk about men than women because up to very recently, all of your characters, your lead characters, would have been male because our cultures are largely, do you remember this word? There you go. So basically, up to very recently, feminism didn't exist, yeah? Which is why all of our characters are male. So we're not really going, these are sexist novels. We're not talking about them in a sexist point of view because obviously women exist. It's just that these are like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. They're more or less a good chunk of 100 years apart. But the problem is that men have stayed the same. Would you say that men have just been free to behave however they want?
No.
No. They've been trapped by what? They've been trapped inadvertently by
Society.
Yes.
Expectations and standards. I mean, men were expected to go fight in whatever war that arose. So, and women weren't. They were expected to just stay at home and look after
Correct.
children and stuff. So they didn't have to go off to war.
Yep.
Men have to go
So-
fight the war.
There's very much this gender divide, yeah?
Which is why back in the day, most of the jobs were more physically demanding, which men were much better at doing than women.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's not the same because there's a lot of jobs that aren't physically demanding, which is why
Yep.
women are becoming more equal in today's society than they were back in the day because they couldn't be equal because they weren't able to do equal things because back in the day it was more physically demanding to do jobs. Nowadays, you can just do stuff with your brain. And I don't know if you knew this, but women have a higher average IQ than men, but a shorter range of IQ on average. And men have a more significant range of IQ. So men tend to be more significantly low on the IQ range or significantly high, whereas women tend to be in the middle.
That's fascinating.
So you get really stupid men and really smart men, and then most women have decent common sense, whereas it varies very significantly for men.
Oh, I love how you've mentioned common sense because I'm not sure a lot of these men in our stories were necessarily allowed to use their common sense. Like Macbeth, for example, I mean, do you think it's common sense to talk to your wife, for example? Like to talk to the person you marry and to like them. To me, it makes sense, right? But of course, back then, women were seen, that was not the role that they had in a marriage. They were literally owned as a possession, as bling to make the man
It
seem...
depends on what society and era.
Yeah.
Common misconception, sexism was a very small period in time.
Yeah.
Because women and men have been around for a long, long time. So sexism didn't used to happen like a long, long time ago, anywhere near as much as it did 50 years ago. And what would
Yeah.
happen is things would be established by who was the strongest, they could get what they wanted.
Yeah.
Women tended to be less strong because far, far back in time, they used to forage and look after the children, whilst the men would go out and hunt. So the men developed denser bones and faster
Yeah.
muscle growth and things like that.
Testosterone does that, doesn't it? It's like it literally physique-wise, it really gives you that physical advantage.
And men tend to store fat around their stomach and their neck, whereas women tend to store it around their legs, which is why they also look completely different as well.
Yeah. Okay, you're literally touching on quite a few themes here now. We've said gender divide, so male versus female, which then links to, who's weak, who's strong. Although, remember, we're split it physically weak, mentally weak, emotionally weak. Pull out those layers.
Yeah.
And of course, spiritually.
I mean, if we're talking historically, there was so many historically leading figures. I mean, if you think of the Egyptians, for heaven's sake, they had so many female rulers. It's ridiculous.
It's quite interesting how
it's
very much this, like you said, the society standards.
Most people want to find a problem with society rather than fix what's already there. They try and give an excuse or reason for something to justify their acts. They don't justify things based on the past, justify them based on the present and how you can improve the future.
Yeah.
Otherwise you won't improve how things go. You'll just shift the guilt and anger to one other side. Yeah. If you shout at someone, that could let some steam off you, then that bestows it upon the person you just shouted at. So having an argument with the people that you supposedly think are in the wrong isn't going to fix anything. Yeah.
Well, now you've just pointed to the concluding things where you actually think about the writer. The writers are they're obviously writing these novels because they're frustrated with something. So, and because all of these novels are about humans, they're all about, humans trapped by society's expectations in various ways and how they try to break free. You've got these writers who go, I need people to understand this concept of freedom or power. And then they write it using this story framework so that us other humans can use it as a guide. So what do you think the men who wrote Jekyll, Macbeth, in Spectacles and or the poetry, what are their criticisms about society, people, rules, morals? What are they upset about enough to write a novel about? Weakness. Do they write about weakness because they don't like it when people are weak, or because it's an excuse, or because
I think it varies in not just the person but the time and the experiences of a person.
It does, yeah.
Someone's views and beliefs and feelings can change over time. They're not the same person they used to be necessarily. Even yesterday, for heaven's sake, they can change significantly.
So change is possible.
Yeah, it's more than possible. It happens all the time.
Well, Mr. Burling would disagree with you because that archetype of the human being is stubborn. He's got his, heels dug in and he's not budging.
If you notice changes happen. That's a fact.
So here, I'm just going to give us a...
Whether it's changing reality or changing your thought process. If you walk into this room and you believe something has changed, if something has changed, that's a change in the room. If something hasn't changed, that's a change in the thought process because you believe that something has changed. So there's always going to be a change if there is perceived to be one.
So it's interesting how these writers are very much, they're looking at typical examples of males at this point. And they're looking at how they're coping and or not coping, how they're masking, how their lives are facades, how they're leading duplicitous lives, how they're lying and being deceitful. What changes do these writers want to see these males make? I almost want to say, because I think all of them mask, yeah? All of them are just, not masking, but they've got these facades, yeah? So for me it would be brave enough to be genuine.
They lack stoicism.
Ooh. the characters lack. I like stoicism in terms of a good kind of stubbornness where you fight for the right thing. But so I would say that, like Mr. Burling, is just stubborn. And that's not stoic, that's stubborn. So I might have to put this here, because although we've said that they're trapped, maybe they are trapped, maybe they are too afraid to break the mold. So we could say maybe the men must break the mold. Like Eric tries to be different to his dad, so he's breaking tradition, he's breaking the mold of his father. But at the same time, Jekyll is breaking the mold of doctors. He's experimenting on himself.
That's just what drug addicts do. You can compare him.
Well, he is a drug addict, yeah. Now, here's the question, I mean...
He may be a doctor, but you can't think like a doctor if your mind is altered.
I'm not sure that these men are weak. I'm not sure I would say that they're weak. I mean, they're certainly determined. The thing is, a weak person, in my mind, apologizes when they're caught, and then their whole reason for doing what they did kind of dissolves. None of these men apologize.
Their weaknesses.
Well, what do you think? Do you think they're...
The strongest person in the world is only as strong as their weakness.
It's just such an interesting thought, because I don't think they're weak. I think they're desperate.
Humans could be the superior animal in the world. We're the superior creature in the world. We're the most dominant creature on the planet Earth. But we don't have eyes in the back of our head. There's always a weakness.
Yeah. But
no matter how big or small, sometimes, if something has no weaknesses, the weakness is its existence.
Do you think this, when we say that the writer's weakness, the writer's intentions could be to expose the weaknesses in these men? But I always think that if you know your weakness, it can become a strength, because your awareness of it can mean that you take time to secure it.
It doesn't become a strength that you have to secure it. It becomes something that you can control more easily and decrease the odds of being affected by.
Ooh, so control. That's an interesting concept. Now you can see here, we're literally revising everything all at once now, and we're looking at themes. We're just literally looking at themes, and we're looking at why the author has written stuff, because all of these authors have got the same issues with humanity. And we are looking at humanity now. Humanity is, I'd love to say, torn. They know what they should do, but they know what they want, and they know what they... I don't know. Are they driven by their own need?
For Macbeth, it's a bit like there's a knife driven into his chest, and every wrong move he makes, someone twists the blade. And near the end, when he dies, someone pulls the knife from him and he just bleeds out.
It's a very shameful death almost. I think for all of these guys, I get a sense of shame, but like a shame that they can't admit to. Especially the conflict poetry, because you're not supposed to admit that you've struggled with whatever orders you had to follow through. You're not supposed to feel bad, you're supposed to feel patriotic. It's your duty. The problem is your duty and your humanity clash massively. But then these guys also have a duty, don't they? Like a duty to maintain the facade of control or the facade of patriarchy. But they're actually just individuals struggling. Like hidden struggle. Now you can see this is such a great answer, because it doesn't matter what question I get given, all of this applies.